right.
You have a
Go-
big screen.
Do I? I don't know why that open. Last PR I was probably looking at. We'll just close and start over. Update configs. I think I already added the groups to this. This is just updating docs that the config commands aren't correct, apparently. I haven't looked at the details of why they're not correct and if anyone's are correct, but that's why we have reviewers. And then this one we talked about a couple weeks ago. I already added the reviewers. Looks like an amazingly small PR if it works, but to add the global commands, global deploy flags to Bosch configs so that the CLI can put them in there. So if this works, amazing.
Mhm.
We talked about this last week, right?
We talked about it 2 weeks ago. I wasn't here last week, so
yeah, last
maybe.
week we also talked about it. Like the one concern with this change is that it will try to fetch the flags for every command.
Oh, really?
Because it's in a command factory, and then like not all flags will work everywhere.
Right.
Yes, so we have also discussed it internally, and there is a second PR. So we also checked the possibility that we can implement it in the deploy.go instead of the factory.go. So we also pass the configs into the deploy.go, so then it can fetch the deployment flags. We also add the possibility to add the includes, excludes to let the global flags can only be applied to the specific deployments. So yeah,
okay.
Also
And
link
is
it
that-
in the discussion.
Okay, so that PR basically supersedes this one, right? So this one should be, is it linked already?
Yes, it's linked in the discussion, I think.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be better just in one PR? It makes sense.
Because currently we are doing a proof of concept, so we need to choose one, but I guess all of us will choose the second one.
Mhm.
So we should say this one. So we should close this one.
If nobody like it.
So these
Yeah.
are two options. We have to make it clear to the reviews that there are two options which are proposed for the same.
I still don't understand what it is useful for. Why do you need global flags for configs?
This was described as helping to solve a problem where like you have a major infrastructure problem and you need to do like 100 different deploys because you have a bunch of service instances all with the like dash fix or dash recreate, and those are all done by pipelines or something. So it'd be really helpful to just configure the director saying, hey, for now, like all deploys should happen with a dash recreate. And then you can just run a pipeline without having to go change all of your pipelines or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the main type of use case.
Yeah. So for example, we merged our blob store from local blob store to, I guess it was for Azure, and then it turned out, oh, it's not working, and we had to roll back. And if you then roll back, of course, you're missing then releases or blobs in the blob store in the local one, right? Because they have been created only in the other one. And then we basically had to, run a lot of dash fix deployments.
Yes,
a lot of.
Can you not just like scale it all back to one really big deployment? Do like one like hybrid cloud thing, so it's like across all clouds in one big deployment. It's way easier.
So I guess here's a question. Do either of these talking about flags not being applicable to certain commands. Do either of these, and if not, is this a third option, sort of allow the config to say, hey, for the deploy command, I want these flags, and for the upload release command, I want these flags, so that you could more narrowly scope them?
Not really. So currently we only implement it for the deploy command because there is no general solution. That's why we also want to go for the implementation inside the deployment.go, not the factory.go. So after we check all the implementation and we thought there is no general solution. So if you want another global flag, for example, for the upload release, then you need also to implement something in the upload release.go.
So I wonder if you could then do that sort of general purpose thing up in the factory, where it's like it looks up the config, and it says, oh, somebody's trying to run the deploy command, and here's the deploy flags from the config, and just merge those into the parser or something here.
And it's not so easy because if you check the factory.go, then we already have a lot of case when inside the factory.go. But we can get the config after we parse the already existing flags. And then we need to do the case when again. That will make the factory.go very long, the class. And you need to check so which command you are currently executing, and then which possible options are available in that command, and then attach them to that options, already generated options again. Or config, yeah. And by the way, the most use cases is in the deploy utility. So
yeah, like deploy is also responsible for uploading releases in most cases. It's just the stem cells, I guess. Upload stem cell is what you're gonna be missing, or which you might want to do a fix if you're.
Hopefully you don't have hundreds of different stem cells though.
Yeah.
Okay. So anybody have any more thoughts or questions?
I haven't read the patch actually. I admit, and so I just want to mention that if the commands is adding silently new flags to what has been written in the first place, new flags coming from this specific config in the director, then the command line should say, hey, I have added silently this and this and these flags. That should be fair to get a proper understanding of what is going on, even in the concourse logs.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, we'll add it.
So these were the reviewers picked randomly. Should I assign those to the other set, or does anybody else want to explicitly be added?
I will be happy to have a look.
Will be also great to somehow make it more
What was that?
more explicit in the description that is
Yeah.
the first and the second option, because it's a little bit hard to. So please update the
so
description.
we have two different proposal for implementation in those two PRs. That's the idea, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But didn't I understood it correct that we want to close the first one?
I thought it was still potentially an option, or no?
I think, I mean, the first one in its current form is not an option because like of the fact that you will get flags that will be applied to commands that do not have those flags. Right.
Yeah.
So it would need some changes.
Too aggressive.
Yeah, it's too aggressive in its current form.
In that case, we close that one and
If-
just focus on this one.
I think so. And then we can always like or in another PR extract these patterns and apply it to more commands. If that seems useful.
Yes.
All right. So then all right. We got anything else on this set?
Hope.
Benjamin,
Ah,
walk us through it so
that's
I don't have to figure it out.
that's an old patch I had from a long time ago. The documentation on the parameters, on some parameters for generating secrets was missing. For example, what can I write into variables when I want to generate a password with length? The length parameter was not documented. So here I've extended that with the discussion to document the differences between generating secrets with the CLI when you are using a VARSTAR and secrets generated by CredHub. There are some inconsistencies, a very small one, but for example, if you generate a password with CLI, it defaults to 20 characters. If you generate it with CredHub, it defaults to 30 characters. So that's a bit different. And sometimes it can bring some questions or yeah. So the idea is to make things clear with this and also make it clear how many bits we have when we generate a key, an RSA key for certificates or anything. Turns out it was to 2048. Which was, and it was changed for certificates to 3072, whereas it has kept 248 for SA key and SSH keys, and it cannot be configured. So that's just documenting that's how it is today. But what would be nice is to be able to configure the length of the generated keys actually, but I mean that's just documenting. And also mention the converge things, because the update mode converge is unrelated to secret generation, but it's also very useful to use those things together. So it was not mentioned in that documentation, documenting only how secrets are generated by the CLI. So I've added some links and some thought around those.
Well, I can already see that figures should be numbers.
Okay.
Line 25.
Yes, that's right.
But it's just like a translation thing. It's probably some.
Yeah, I'm not a native speaker, so I can make silly things like
no
that.
No problem, yes. Dude. I also make these mistakes.
That means that Joseph needs to review, given he's the only native speaker here.
You do not want me doing things like this. I am worse than many of you.
Yeah, you can assign me.
Question halfway related to this. We added the new certificate auto rotation or deploy stuff. Do we document that in here? I don't know if you saw any of that, Benjamin, about what is it, Ruben? What are the
update strategy?
update strategy for variables. Is that what it is?
That already implemented?
Yes. No, it has already been released. It's in production everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
We don't know if it's nice yet.
So we will probably see a major outage next week.
I think it's opt-in right now.
But it turns out also that the CLI using VarStore doesn't really honor the update mode converge. With my recent experience rebuilding my own environment, I had to remove the stale certificates from the VarStore so that the CLI regenerates those. It couldn't figure out by itself that the expiration date or alternative names were incorrect and needed recreation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a CredUp feature.
Yeah.
All right. Heard Ramon wanted to be on this, and then
In 297, that's the release of the director, which introduced the update strategy, the on stem cell change variable strategy.
Which version number?
I've posted in the chat.
Ah, okay.
It was a major announcement. Everybody knew about it.
When?
There was a blog post and a live.
it was a
stream.
major
You all
release of the
missed
boss
that?
director. There's only
Yeah, I mean-
280 others of them.
I really have to open a new blog. And do you know that Nginx website has gone offline?
Oh, no.
Well, they don't exist
I've-
anymore, right? So
Yes, they have merged in, but they were continuing activity with the Nginx name, sort of, as a VMware partner. And now the website is down. Well,
you mean the same thing that happened with Stark and Wayne and Quark?
the Stack and Wayne blog is still around, but
Yeah, now
before,
it is. But
We
it took a while.
revived it.
It was
But before
down.
Carrick, at some points, I will be happy to host it again if Carrick decides to shut it down. Because the tricks that are documented in the Stack and Wayne blog are really amazing. There are amazing informations in there. So anyway, to be discussed somewhere else.
What did I do wrong here, Ruben? Why is this one still here?
Did you try reloading your browser?
I just did that.
I don't know.
That was the only thing I could think to try.
There's
The
a bug.
robots will take care of it. Guaranteed.
Maybe?
If not, Ruben can work on the robots.
Yes.
I know about this one.
Oh,
We had some security testers come through and evaluate what we were doing, and they're like, "Hey, you print a bunch of passwords out into log files," and they weren't wrong. So this is the Google CPI, and basically it printed out twice the parameters coming into it, once unparsed and once parsed, which the parsed ones were actually worse than the unparsed ones because it had just like some random ghost struct data in it. So that was fantastic. But also included for create VM specifically, the VM password, the Nats private key, all of the Blobstore credentials, all of these things can be.
that's useful. That's useful.
For debugging purposes, man.
So we didn't remove everything. We just took those particular keys. Wow, this is more. I don't remember writing all this. Who wrote all this? We took those particular keys and replaced them with redacted in the logs. We also learned that it goes into the debug logs, and there's no way to change the Google CPI from anything other than debug. In main.go, it's just like set up a logger, and its log level is debug, hard-coded. So that's fun.
have you added the ability to tweak the debug level, possibly?
No, we didn't add that as part of this. Mostly because I know for us, we weren't thinking that, you know, customers come to us and they're like, there was a problem. It's like, all right, go add the debug level and then re-add it. Like, and it doesn't log too much. It seems like most of the stuff that it logs is stuff you generally want anyway. So it didn't seem super valuable. However, it does seem like there's an opportunity for it to be easily configurable, because assuming you're using a Bosch CPI config, you could then update the CPI config to change the log level there and have it flow through, not have to redeploy the director. So it's possible we have the tools to make it easy to enable, but not currently part of this. Also important that all of these sets of credentials, you can easily mitigate away. Like you can tell the Bosch agent to recreate the VM password, in which case this one doesn't matter at all, even if it is sets. NAT's private keys by default now get rotated as soon as the VM is deployed. And if you're using signed URLs, these also don't matter. So hopefully none of this is terribly important, but it makes security people concerned when they see these things in logs. So
and we are concerned too with that. That's
well,
our job.
We can say that they're not important. It's like that VM password actually gets replaced in like literally before the VM is available, and they're like, doesn't matter. Also, it's a hash. It's not even the password. It's a hash. It's like they have literally 10 seconds to reverse engineer that hashed password.
But to get access to those logs, you need to be authenticated with the director anyway, right?
True.
Yeah,
or
so
on the VM.
You could also just Bosch SSH at that point. Like,
that's right, but typically logs are not stored on encrypted medium, and that's quite bad.
It should maybe some for a local attack. So it has a screen scraper, and so we are going to use the screen. We're going to rehash copy pass. Yeah.
Also note that the security folks that we had hired, we only gave them a GCP environment. So there may be similar stuff in the other CPIs. We haven't really looked. We might look, but we also might not. So if you're concerned about a CPI you're using, look closely at the logs. Which, great news, you can just do Bosch task -CPI and see all the logs. So
good to know. I checked the Warden CPI.
Yeah, that's the most important
one.
There was something interesting that we also found, which would be probably good to know about, which is that there is can I view the file? There's a multi-logger in here. There's a multi-logger in here, which takes like a logger and a log buffer, and those things are not at all a multi-logger. Like, it doesn't actually log to both of them. It's a lie. It just holds both of them, and somewhere up in main.go, it like sets a multi-writer string to write to the log buffer and to the logger, and then this thing just holds both of them, but it's like very confusing and weird. But the important part is that when you look at the logs, it seems wrong, because it seems like one set of the logs is nested within the other, because it logs out for both the request bytes and the response bytes, and you see stuff getting intermingled, and that's because the response actually includes the log buffer. So the request bytes are once again repeated, and the response bytes log because it's responding with the log. The log comes back to Bosch so that Bosch can put it in the task debug log. So when you're just staring at the actual log file, it seems really broken. It's like, oh, stuff is like intermingled and like terrible, but that's just because you're logging the previous logs, and yeah, it's confusing.
Wasn't the Google CPI also the oldest CPI that we have, made by Verdi? Would that be weird? Like, this is probably built with Google 1 or something.
This might have been made by Google engineers themselves when we were like, hey, everybody, like, this is your job now. If you want to be like Cloud Foundry compatible, and then eventually they were like, "This is yours."
I thought it was created by Ferdy, but
Maybe. I mean, the first ones were vSphere and then AWS, but
Yeah, Ferdy did
Mm.
OpenStack, I believe.
oh,
No.
OpenStack. Oh, okay. I thought it was.
OpenStack. Yeah.
and this is the one that we're not supposed to merge.
Yeah. So I've worked at recreating my own environments, but didn't have time to test that yet. But I've hit upon a nasty issue with NATS password being still around in the CPI configuration and taking precedence over the NATS client creds. That's a later point in the agenda that we can discuss. So I really doubt, just like Ruben said last week, I really doubt that removing the country is possible in the username.
In NATS, yeah.
In NATS, but I mean, this really depends on how. I mean, the username in NATS should be the same as in the client certificate. But why the hell does it need a country in there and not anything else? Do you have an answer to that? Or
I think these are the
just-
fields that are in the certificate. So all the fields need to be in there, but
okay. So would we generate certificates without the country? Then NATS wouldn't wouldn't care
But
about
it's
the
a-
country.
isn't a required field?
I think, yeah, that's one of those required fields that nobody understands now why it's required, because some people 20 years ago were like, this is important. And now we're like, that's not important.
Okay.
But part of the spec, I think, is that you need a country, you need a common name, which made sense. And now they're like, no, common name's not important. Now you should use subject alternative names instead. But so common name's still required, even if it's not used.
Okay.
But yeah, we discussed this last time, and we
Mm.
are not sure. That's why we want to validate this. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just experienced what happens when some agent cannot connect to NATS, and it's bad. It's just the agent reboots all over and over, and in the logs you can see authorization violation related to NATS. It's unclear why, but it's authorization violation. So yeah, it's bad. We should not match that. And yeah, we still need to test and maybe figure out how we could roll out something in which order. But I don't know yet.
Yeah.
The
I wonder-
certificates would have to be regenerated and regenerated and sent to the agents. We just said last week that we should have some possibility to trust both and to work with
So you
both.
need two user entries for every agent.
Is this a problem with them not matching the server CA country? Like those need to match, or this is something that the director's actually validating explicitly?
So there's a link. So I've posted a link in the comments.
Yeah, I looked at that.
Oh, you looked at that?
I didn't comprehend it, but I looked at it.
So so this stuff ends up in the users something like there's a dynamically generated config file for NATS for the server, and this is in there. So for every agent we create one of these entries, and it's the matching is done like the certificate that the agent has contains these fields, and that's how the match is done, right? So it matches the user against those fields in the certificate, and that's how it figures out what the permissions are for that given
Got it. So we need
certificate.
to get the nets auth to have duplicate entries, one for US and one for USA.
Yes.
And then once that's been out for a while, in theory, roll out the other thing. Or you can roll out the other thing as a flag, maybe.
I mean, this is.
I guess
can
once you roll
just-
that out, it's immediately fine. Yeah.
Yeah, because this file gets generated all the time, right? Like,
Yeah. This doesn't, you don't need the clients to be updated. You need this to be updated first. And when you do that, it's fine regenerating the clients.
yeah.
And then someday we could delete the USA ones. Or you could have a flag, feature flag that's lets you put in both or not.
They are generated with 2 years validity, as I've seen, correct? Ruben?
Sorry, what?
The client certificates, they have 2 years validity duration.
Oh, that could be, I don't know. Like,
I think I've seen that. That was yesterday or before. It's quite long. It's not 1 year. But yeah.
But it's configurable. It's depend on the requirements you have.
Okay.
You also can't necessarily use that as a guide of when to remove it, because somebody could be using an old version and then upgrade to the new version. You know, they could stay on that old version for a long time, then upgrade to the new version, which removes that feature. So you sort of need to leave the ability to have the USA in there for till everybody forgets about it, basically.
I know. Yeah.
and I don't know. What I'm worried about is that there's like some sort of limit on the number of users that you can have in that file or something. Right. And then like,
I mean, we already know that it can be hundreds, right? Because people have hundreds of VMs, so why not 2 times hundreds? Like,
yeah.
We'll see what that limit is.
I don't like doubling things in config
It's
files.
way better than orders of magnitude.
Yeah, sure.
Has SAP already deployed Bosch directors using these short-lived nets credentials?
Yes, we are up to date with the upstream.
Yeah.
So it scales properly, as it seems, because you have an environment with thousands of VM, if I remember correctly. So the nets file accepts thousands of credentials. Possibly.
This is great for us then, because we don't have half that many, so we know we'll be fine.
But we shouldn't keep the director busy with parsing users.
Yeah.
That's NAT server's problem.
Just put more CPUs.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, to be continued.
Let's first understand whether this is an issue. Could be that it's not an issue.
Yeah, I posted a link to the Nets documentation in the chat, and there's an RFC that's referenced. So it's lightweight directory access protocol, which is a string representation of the distinguished names for certificates. Like there, that link in the middle, down. The RFC, yes. The question is how, I don't know if this allows wildcards.
Probably not, but maybe. Also, it would be interesting to know if it's required. Like, can we just remove country from there? Because it feels like if you're matching certs, that like specifying that it must be this country feels like it should be an optional thing. Like you should be able to say, I want these things and I don't care about these other things.
Common name is typically the unique thing that is unique for identifying things. But organization and country are usually optional stuff to determine what we are dealing with. And these are parts that can be added or removed. Depends on the choice you make when generating the certificate and how you identify things with those fields. Yeah. So I need to make anyway. I need to make some tests on a living director, removing the country and seeing if it works.
Benjamin, last time you mentioned that it looks like LDAP things, right? But it's in the RFC, it mentions that this is a more restrictive version of that.
Okay. I haven't read it. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's a question of whether it's parsing this into individual things, or is it just like straight up, no, it must be these pieces. But some testing will figure that out.
Yeah, maybe we can paste the RFC and ask ChatGPT about that.
That's a good point.
I should ask ChatGPT. Yes, indeed.
Is the country required or not in this RFC?
This one's still waiting for reviewers. I pinged them this morning, even though Ruben pinged them last week. Now I pinged them on Slack. I'm like, hey, look at this. And then we've got 2 pending merge over here. It's got 1 reviewer. I think there was some back and forth and improvements made. Proxy stuff, I don't know if that was done or decided to be added later, but do we wait for a second review or do we merge with 1?
I left a comment. I feel like, I don't know, have they responded? Because there is a whole library. We have a whole SSH library that should take care of all of that.
Yes, they responded. I think the last by Tamara.
Oh, there, I see.
Did they respond to that?
Yeah, in thread a bit up.
Oh.
There, I think last week.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're still doing some investigation.
But did they push those commits already? But because they say that they refactored it to use it.
There's a Bosch SSA client. I saw the commit Bosch SSA client, and
was there a commit that said that?
Yeah, if you go down, all the way down, you see here like use. Oh, all the way down.
Oh yeah.
Maybe you can ask Ryan to re-review now that there's a new commit, because he found initially this problem.
Right. But then they also said that they are.
Well, he is out of office next week, and he wants to double check or something.
Yeah, but he said he didn't verify it himself. But like the assumption is that the library is going to take care of it.
Yeah.
So Brian already tested it and found that there was an issue, right? And now they've made a change. So if Brian retests it, it's fine as well.
Yeah.
I think there's a button you can click to ask for a review again. If you go up, there's this, yes, that one.
All right. And then we've got 6th gen instance stores. Those are instance stores.
Yeah, for me, I think yes. Why not? I don't. Because we're already doing it for all the other instance types.
Oh, this is just mappings.
So
yeah.
Why shouldn't it be? So why should it be for this type instance type? Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, this seems fine. I don't know if there's open source code, but definitely we run into problems where some instance types aren't available on all regions, but this is just I want to use this instance type, and then how does the CPI handle it? So seems good. I guess actually one of the questions is this correct? This is like the number of sets, like this is like the size of the ephemeral disk or something? The number of disks or something? I forget, but
I
we'll
don't know,
assume that they're correct.
probably go up at the beginning of the file and we probably see what they mean. Nope. Okay.
You would think that.
Okay.
Matthias, you reviewed that one.
Yeah,
Have you checked
I'm
it?
currently trying to remember because I checked this as well. Yeah, number of disks.
Yeah.
It's too
about
long
the
ago. I don't know.
SSDs.
Can't remember. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's this type and number of
But I
disks.
compared it with the data in AWS in the documentation. It was okay.
Okay, great. All right, I'm
Merge.
just gonna merge it then. All right, and now well, hold on. Any issues? Way other issues. Let's come back to issues since there's other agenda items. We'll come back to those after we get through these. VirtualBox CPI heuristics. I definitely don't know what this means.
If you click on the link, you have a detailed report of what's going on. Actually, the VirtualBox CPI is using vSphere stem cells and patching those at importing time. Until Bionic stem cells, the OVF file was defining two disk controllers, IDE and SCSI. SCSI as number 3 and IDE as number 4. And the CPI just makes touch and replace in the XML file, changing 3 to 4. So, okay, that was with Bionic. And 2 years ago, Ruben has added VirtualBox 6 support, and the default SATA was used as controller, but for being able to import these stem cells that were only listing SCSI and IDE controllers, the point was to patch more the OVF file and replace the IDE controller altogether with a SATA controller. And then was the problem that Jammy stem cells in 2022 didn't bring any IDE controller to patch, but instead a SATA controller as number 3 and a SCSI controller as number 4. So for those, the point was to patch search and replace in the XML from 4 to 3, the exact opposite of what was done in the first place. And of course, I went into big problems with that. It took me time to figure out what was the issue.
But are you gonna make a PR against the VirtualBox CPI to fix this, or?
I'm thinking of it, but
because we do not have to support Bionic anymore, right?
Yeah.
So like, I don't care about like supporting all the stem cells with the VirtualBox CPI. It's for development purposes. And I think there's one person in France or something that's running something in production with it, but I might be without.
I thought of that too. I don't know who is this.
I don't know if we have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, and the problem was when working with, well, this is patching at the import time, and when you use those stem cells to create VMs, you have to have a consistent setup with the time what was enforced at the time of import. So it's quite in the end it's quite clutch, and it's not documented. I mean, so
No, it was extremely painful. I like when you talk about it, it brings back memories, not happy memories. Horrible.
Yeah, but it's very fragile to search and replace like that in an
I know.
XML file.
I remember that when they changed the OVF generator to a major version for vSphere stem cells, it was also nice.
Rather than searching and replacing, maybe you can make an XSLT transformation for it.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Not better readable. I mean, not. Yeah, and for how many megabytes of libraries in the in the binary?
But what's the next action here?
Maybe document what is impossible. I mean, it's impossible to import a jammy stem cell in an old version of the CPI. And if you import an old stem cell in the old CPI, then you upgrade the CPI, you cannot use it unless you enforce the controller settings back to what it was at import time. So those edge cases would be nice to document. Do we have a documentation somewhere of the CPI?
I would just add it to the README.
The README. Yeah.
Yeah, put something in the README and reference this novel that you wrote about it.
Yeah.
The commit message.
Yeah, the next section is for me to open a blog. So
yeah.
really, I must do that.
Yeah, I don't think we have. Well, you have the VirtualBox CPI documentation, but
it's not listed here.
No.
Yes, it is.
This hasn't been updated since 2005 or something. I don't know.
But it is here.
It is here. Yes.
Doc's Bosch repo
something.
should have a page for this that could have additional details.
That's right.
But also it just links back, so you could also just put it in the README.
Yep.
Which that link is, it no longer lives at Dimitri's repo.
And it also states still download VirtualBox 5, which doesn't work anymore anyways.
I've submitted a patch for that. It's pending. That's strange. No, sorry, I've pushed a patch on master branch for that. Something like last week.
Doc's Bosch?
Yeah, Doc's Bosch.
Oh.
I'm awake. You pushed to master.
Well, for small things like that, yes. I mean, we didn't mind any review for that.
There's still pull request open.
The third one, update links to Bosch things. You were looking at it.
Do these don't end up in our board, do they? Oh no, that one did.
I mean, this modification on the links, I've pushed it to master with no PR.
Yeah, I was just wondering if these end up on our project board or not. Did we talk about this one today? We must have.
We talked about this, yes.
That was minutes ago. But... I can't remember that far back.
So anyway, how is regenerated the website?
Once the PR is merged, the CI will So we'll see a new update on the branch, and it will just basically update the.
And if I push to master, then it doesn't trigger any deployment
should.
of the.
It
It
should.
does.
as well.
Should be live within about 5 minutes.
That's strange. Look at the commits and this update links in the Bosch Lite repos. I've removed every CPP for life. I've checked that none was staying there, and except for the Zookeeper Bosch release that is still there.
Let's
But-
see.
So I don't see the I don't see the virtual box in it. So
It might, some of these, the docs end up getting pulled in from other places. I wonder if that gets pulled in from the VirtualBox API itself somewhere. As fun as that sounds. Is there a docs
No, I don't
in
think
here?
so.
Probably not, but maybe.
Ah.
Lost it.
No.
we can double check that later.
Yeah.
Maybe that the automation is stuck, which updates to the website.
I think we would have noticed that, but
Mm.
Where was that page that mentioned CPP for life? I've already lost it.
Another one talking about this is a guide, and you were on the documentation
Oh,
for
you're right.
yeah. I've missed that.
Oh.
Oh,
This is in the
Ah.
this is in the,
it's another place.
yeah, this is not in the docs. This is the automatically generated content portion of the website.
Mm.
So really, but this link still links to CPP for life within Bosch.io. So I
Okay.
would think that would have gotten updated, but
Maybe it's part of Bosch.io repo and not Docs Bosch. Well, I double check that. That's strange, but
oh, there it is. No, it's still there,
okay.
but it's questionable if, yeah, it should work. You change that. It, some of these paths in Bosch.io
Ah,
get weird when you use
but-
the alternate ones.
Good question.
Because this already works. And
Indeed.
in fact, it actually lists, it has the newer versions there too. So yeah, so those links just need to be updated.
So they are both the old one with CPP for life stuck at some older version, and the new
Mhm.
one that goes beyond, and no real link, so that when you end up on some of those, you know that there is later history.
Yeah, that all
It's-
feeds in from just the metadata releases index repos
Mm.
that Bosch.io basically runs off of. It just reads all that in and dynamically generates the pages based on it. So at some point we
Mm.
changed the index for Bosch.io to, reference the new one, but that doesn't make it so that it can't render content from the old one still. So generally you just remove all the links to it and then it sort of disappears, but you can still go to it because Bosch.io will serve anything that it finds in the releases index repo.
Okay. I would love to jump into that and improve things, and also index a lot more releases. First of all, mine But there are lots of releases that are not listed and worth mentioning. Anyway.
Yeah, that's
Anyway.
just takes a PR to the releases index or something repo in Cloud Foundry, and then they just show up.
I must do that. Yeah.
Okay.
And the next point was about short-lived NAT credentials, and the thing is, when you incorrectly set up MBus with password, user and password, then the Bosch agent takes that priorly, and the Bosch agent doesn't if the Bosch agent also has a client certificate at hand, it will use the username and password. So and say authorization violation, and won't connect to NAT, so it will stop and reboot and be rebooted by SV. Yeah, what we could do is change the Bosch agent so that when you have a client credential, you take that in priority compared to username and password.
But it's only happening if you're misconfiguring your Bosch, right?
Yeah.
It's just like really painful to debug. That's the main thing here.
It really illustrates the fact that you, for some of your Bosch manifests, you want to rely on other people writing those. And that was a part I was writing by myself, copying piece of older stuff, and didn't notice that there was this small stuff to change, remove the password, remove username and password. And that's the way how you make things depends to the correct source code. I mean, even if you in your own generated manifest, some bits are depending on other stuff.
Is there anything that you feel like we should change? Like, I mean, I think it was correct in Bosch deployment, right? So if you would have used that, you didn't have this issue.
So it was correct for my Bosch server, but it was incorrect for the Garden VM, because I've managed to separate Bosch and Garden using the shadow CPI. The shadow CPI uses SSH so that the CPI stays on the Garden VM. It's a requirement for operating IP tables. Yeah. So that was only related to the Garden deployment.
I don't know when the last time NAT's passwords worked was, but if it's long enough ago, ripping it out of new versions of the agent seems like a good cleanup anyway.
Yeah, I wanted to suggest not to change the priority, but clean up.
Yeah. But aren't we still using that to bootstrap?
Password? No, we use certs.
No,
we give it a cert, and then we rotate a new. We regenerate the cert.
No, but like
once
for
it comes
Bosch
up.
create env, Bosch create env
That's
uses Bosch create env uses HTTP.
We probably shouldn't break that.
No, it's. I think people still use that. I mean, we can also just
wait. But doesn't create env also use a cert for the communication? No, doesn't it just do?
I don't think it does MTLS.
Well, maybe we should fix that at some point too.
The bootstrap agent is using username and password. Yes.
Yeah, because we just built a thing where we are trying to compile Bosch releases on Kubernetes, where we're spinning up a stem cell and then talking to the agent directly.
But you can talk to the agent with MTLS works over HTTP.
Yeah, no. So we should be able to do that. Yes, definitely. But then we need that.
So changing the priority seems like a fine band-aid for this, and then 10 years from now, when somebody gets around to making the agent talk MTLS or create env, we could maybe just delete the password.
Yeah, but also like how many people are actually running into this?
Not many.
But
if there's a PR that changes the priority, I'm like, sure, but like I'm also not gonna go do that when we get off this call.
Yeah. I have to drop for another meeting.
Same for me.
Yeah, we're at time here.
Okay,
Thanks all. Bye.
that's
See you
right.
later.
Thank
See
you,
next week.
everybody.
Okay,
Bye bye.
Yeah,
take
thanks
care.
everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.